Good evening, everyone. My name's Ray Douglas. This is the Safe Guidance TV. Thank you for tuning in. I'd like you to get yourself comfortable for today's session. It's going to be an interesting one, and I'm going to add our guests as they arrive. Riaz, how's it going?
All right, brother, yourself?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
How's it been going? How's the last few months been treating you?
Not very well, to be honest with you. I'm on a stone just about. Bored out of my brains. I'm working from home. I'm not interacting with anybody, so it's really difficult. Me being a bit of a social animal, I like to interact with people. But doing it online and just talk to my kids and my wife, it's not the same.
I hear you. Cool. But look, we're going to be joined shortly by gentleman Ivan Humble. But what I'd like to do is for you to just give us a bit of background about you and your journey.
Okay. Born and bred in Leicester. I suffered a lot of racism as a kid. You know, the usual name calling and stuff at school. There was only a handful of us in that school, of Asian lads and black lads and girls. There was a handful. I'm talking about less than 10 out of, say, 1,500. And at that time, there was a lot of National Front. There was a lot of racist rhetoric from from Enoch Powell, Margaret Thatcher, and the National Front was getting big from the working classes. They sort of developed quite big, and there's a lot of packy bashing and a lot of chasing of immigrants around this world. I won't say immigrants, but people of colour like myself and yourself and whoever else would get a lot of abuse from these boneheads, skinheads. So I grew up through the 70s through that sort of era. Coming to the 90s now, I got a little bit older and I got a bit sick of it. So we sort of fought back in a way because we just joined gangs and stuff. So we sort of fought back in a way. But I didn't, how do I explain this? Ray, I'm not sure how to explain this. I mean, I think I joined a subculture which broke down all the racial barriers. It was all under an umbrella of Leicester City FC. I became a football casual. And it was just a different sort of subcultural together, encompassing of all different cultures, nations, social beings. We didn't care if he was rich or poor, black or white, able or disabled. If he was Leicester, he was Leicester. And that's what, to be honest with you, this is what broke down a lot of racial barriers, for me anyway. So no more getting abused by, racist people on the streets. And now it was that part of a bigger gang that wouldn't dare give us any abuse. And with this culture, it was violent. It was violent in parts, but it was all about the clothes. If you look good, he's part of a big gang, a massive gang. So it was gang culture, but in a different way. Not like the gang culture you see now. We only fought those that wanted to fight us. We had some morals, you know what I mean? But now the gang culture now has gone up completely down. They kill you for a £10 draw now. In those days, you wouldn't kill people. You just beat them up and then, you just wipe yourself down and carry on walking like, okay, I deserve that because it's part of that culture. I did that for about 6 years, part of Leicester City FC's firm. And then I was still searching. I mean, after a few years doing that, you get sick of it. You want to move on to something else. So the transition was I went to the rave scene instead, which is all about, making love and not war. And we were dancing in warehouses and stuff, in abandoned warehouses in tents in the middle of the field with Coventry lads who we hated, 6 months previously, or Birmingham lads. It was bizarre because it was all under one sort of tent. These people that 12 months previously, we were tearing each other's throats out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then obviously with this culture, there's a lot of drug taking and stuff, and it was a lot of hedonism and stuff, and it was just debauchery. And
let me rewind a second. You mentioned the word casuals because I was, funny enough, I was going through some papers the other day and I saw your the ticket to your show, your play, which was, what was it called? Remind me, please.
Memoirs of an Asian Football Casual.
Memoirs of an Asian Football Casual, which sounded like an oxymoron, right?
Yes, it was at the time.
So what is a casual? Because this is interesting. What is a casual? Let's move the hooliganism element to one side. What's a casual?
Casual is a person who dresses well, part of a firm. You'll have a group of lads that all dress a similar way. It's all about the fashions, camaraderie, one-upmanship, and following a certain football team, belonging to a firm. That's what casual was. It wasn't just about the violence. That was part of it. We weren't hooligans. Like, we didn't go around smashing up, places and beating up normal fans. We would just fight people that wanted to fight us. That's what casual was. It was like a subculture, like the mods and the rockers. The mods had everybody had a different dress code in those days. Through that subcultures, you had the punks, spiky hair, leather jackets, and piercings and whatever. Skinheads, big Doc Martens, tattoos, braces. And you had the mods, slick sort of suits, pork pie hats. We was like that, but we was far ahead. And I think we were the precursor for fashion in England, to be honest with you. Designer levels, anyway.
Interesting. So you were a minority within society, and then you went within a subculture, but they accepted you as a minority, even though you were a minority within them.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Interesting. So then you obviously mentioned going onto the rave scene.
Yeah.
And so what was the epiphany then? Because now obviously you're very active in terms of race relations. Let's call it what it is: cohesion, bringing communities together, challenging racism as well. You've got, your work is clearly out there. I think you went viral as well, didn't you? At one point, there was a video. Remind me, how many views did you get?
I've had a few, but they've taken them down for some reason on Facebook. I had a Facebook video. It was like, the first video I got was like over 1.2 million views.
And what was it? What was the video about?
5 Muslims support ISIS. The Daily Mail made that. I think it was the Sun. 1 in 5 Muslims are jihadis or something stupid like that. So I challenged it, and I got 1.2 million views on Facebook. I should put it on YouTube, really. I made a mistake, but anyway, I put it on Facebook, and all my videos started going quite viral. And I had done one about the Westminster attacks. I got 2.2 million views for that. But Facebook's taken those videos down for some reason. I don't know why. I can't find it. So I don't know what happened there. That's how I got viral from those. Not from my book, not from the play, but from these videos that I did.
So essentially, what was you saying on those videos?
I was saying how it was, how you can't blame a minority. There's a minority of people within each community, but in our community, we have a minority of people that do evil actions. You can't blame the rest of us for that, because we don't know who they are. Let's just say the media and other organisations, other bodies were blaming the whole community for these jihadis or these groomers and these paedophiles and stuff. We don't know about these lot. We don't know about them, because it's like they're secretive. So they can't blame us for every action that someone does in our community.
Interesting. So, I mean, today, one of the reasons why we did this show today is to talk about the journey of change, not just to specifically talk about, Ivan's journey or your journey or anyone else's journey. It's about the change. How does a change come about? Throughout history, we've heard of, people's road to Damascus. We've heard about epiphanies in people's lives where something's happened, or they've experienced or come into contact with someone, and it's changed the way that they've lived the rest of their life. And what's interesting was, a couple of weeks ago, I was delivering some training online to some professionals, and part of the, the icebreaker in the new Zoom world, you do these icebreakers, and I did one around, but I did one around cohesion and diversity. So I was asking some questions. For example, one of them was, what percentage of people came from the Caribbean with a criminal record? People were saying, like, the Windrush generation, people were saying anything 40, 50, 60%.
Wow.
Another question was, what percentage came to the UK with a trade or a qualification? Once again, people were way off in terms of their numbers. But here was the one for me. I said, what percentage of the UK are refugees? And remember, these were social care practitioners. So, they're professionals, and, they care, and, they embrace diversity and cohesion. But some of them were saying up to 40% of the UK are refugees.
That's madness.
So, refugees. So whatever report you read, what you find is that, numbers are not, very rarely numbers are exceeding 1%. Sometimes like 0.76% of the UK population are refugees. But it's their perception, right?
Where do they get perception from?
Exactly. And that's one of the things we want to talk today. And as we bring in Ivan now, for him to talk about his journey, we see a lot of commonalities in the work we do about getting people, number one, getting people's attention, which can change their perception, which can affect their reality. So I'm going to add Ivan now. He's with us. Ivan,
Hey.
good evening.
Had to resort to the phone because the laptop messed up. So
no problem. You're looking great there.
Cheers.
How's it going?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you very much for coming on Safe Guidance TV. And me and Riaz were just talking around his journey and what it led to and some of his experiences. And he was very honest and open about his journey so far. And we're all still on a journey, and we're all still learning, right? So
yeah,
I would like to, reinforce that. I know your time's precious, so coming on tonight is really valuable. What I want to do is make it really simple. Is just start at the beginning. We named today's show from EDL to equality. So first of all, which part of the beautiful country are you calling from today?
Suffolk.
Suffolk, okay. So as you know, today's layout, Suffolk. Today's
Suffolk
layout is in blue. I try to be fair. So blue representing Leicester City FC because,
best team in the land.
There you go. Birmingham City, and I know you're a Norwich man, but let's go with Ipswich today, Ivan. So, your journey from EDL to equality. Let's start at the very beginning. How did you get here where you are today as someone who goes up and down the country actually promoting equality and diversity amongst different communities? Let's go.
Right. Well, for me, I'll try and do it in a nutshell kind of thing. I had a genuine concern back in 2009 that I couldn't get any answers for. It was all to do with the 2009 homecoming parade in Luton for the soldiers, when Adrian Chadji stood there with some of his supporters abusing our troops. I got angry at that because, not just because I see it and got angry, I knew some of the lads on that parade, some of the soldiers. At the same time, I was working for a charity called the Viking Family Support Group. So I was meeting young lads of 18, 19 years old coming back with arms and legs missing. To see a group of, Adrian Chadri and these radical Muslims abusing them for that, I found it atrocious.
Who's Adrian Chadri? Can you explain to the viewer who Adrian Chadri is?
So Adrian Chadri is a radical Muslim, but back in 2009, my perception of him wasn't that.
What was your
perception? Does that make sense?
What was your perception?
So my perception of Adrian Chadri was he was the Muslim spokesperson for the whole of the UK. See, I see you laugh areas, but where I come from in a town called Lowestoft, it's 99.9% white. Lowestoft. It's the most easterly town in England, man.
Okay.
Right, so see, now you put me off. Where was I again? See, you always do this, Riaz. So my perception, right?
Yeah, he was the leader of the Muslim community.
Yeah, so coming from the town I do, when we only see Adrian Chadri when he was on the news, documentaries, he was the Muslim in the papers. For me, my perception of him was, because the press and media were going to him, that he spoke for all the Muslims. Because where I lived, I didn't see no Muslims challenging his opinion. Because even today, like I said, in our town, it's 99.9% white. We've got a Muslim community today of just 100 people. So back then, we had even less. So I had nowhere to go to ask my questions. I did go to the town hall to speak to a counsellor. I had a conversation with him, but left that little meeting a bit disheartened, not heard properly. And then I went home and put a big rant up on Facebook.
What do you mean by you felt disheartened?
Well, all they did was listen to me. They didn't sort of say, well, not acknowledge it, but they didn't offer me any kind of solution or another way forward with what I had.
What was the problem?
I kind of thought perhaps that my view was different to the majority back then. Obviously it was, do you know what I mean? But for me personally, it was a genuine concern. And like I said, I put a rant up on Facebook, and a short while later, I started speaking to somebody online for about 2 hours, 2-3 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, we're starting a new group in 2 weeks' time called English Defence League. Did you want to be a part of it? We're going to stand up against people like Agent Chantry. So I jumped at the start. I jumped at that chance to feel as if I was doing something. But looking back in hindsight, because it's a great thing nowadays, if that counsellor would have said to me, Ivan, here's an email address and maybe this one, I'm not saying it would have changed me, but it might have helped. A lot of my anger and frustration might have gone into the emails and not my rant on Facebook.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. So clearly, you saw someone that was identified as a radicalizing, and also saying some real disrespectful thing to people who you held to be people you knew personally, right? Not just kind of generically. People you know who put their life on the line.
And to me back then, I guess I thought those soldiers were going over there to do a good job and improve things. Do you know what I mean? So them abusing him, I just didn't sit right with me. Do you know what I mean?
So back to you were asking questions back then that weren't getting answered, which led you to wanted to find that answer. So when you said you went done a rant online, what, you just kind of expressed your feelings and what other people just connected with you, or what happened?
Yeah, I got people connected with me. I started getting likes and shares and stuff, and it was quite crazy. Then I got an inbox off that person, and back then my life was totally different to it is now. So I had lots of vulnerabilities as well. One of them was isolation through my mental health experiences. I wanted to be a part of something, I guess. I wanted that sense of belonging. Not just that, I suppose. The one thing the EDL did give me, wrongly or rightly, whatever way you look at it, is it gave me a sense of belonging again. It gave me a purpose. Because I don't really touch on this like I should do, but I was a victim of domestic abuse as well for 18 months. So that stripped me of my masculinity. I didn't feel like a man anymore. I was a shadow of myself. But going on the demos, having that abuse and that, I don't know, just being able to say stuff. Do you know what I mean? I guess.
So go ahead, Riaz.
So to vent frustrations, like when we used to go football, we were so frustrated with unemployment, racism, the government. The only way we can let out our frustration was going to a football match and let it all out. Same with the EDL march, with the EDL demonstration. Same sort of thing. You let out all your vents, you let out your anger out, you voice you shout and scream, want to get into a fight. Similar thing with football violence.
So one of the things that's coming up though then is this concept of cross vulnerabilities. Because quite often when we talk about people adopting certain lifestyle choices, whether it be subcultures like football hooliganism or at its most extreme sense, radicalisation and extremism, the concept of cross vulnerabilities is something that I don't think we explore enough. And this concept of people having vacuums, not everybody, but there are clearly people who have vacuums or spaces or are on a journey. And because the right person didn't engage them at that time, it opened up a Pandora's box in a negative sense, where someone could get in their ear, or someone could get, in your case, someone could get in your inbox, or what we've seen over the last few years with people from the UK traveling abroad for a cause that actually wasn't real. Okay, only to find out when they got there. What I'm seeing is that there's a pattern. And the pattern is back to this word about resilience. So these cross vulnerabilities, clearly resilience is one of the anecdotes, in my opinion. So the inbox happened, Ivan. You engaged and you went on a march. Then what next?
Well, to start with, I was just an admin on the Facebook page to start with. So I was just engaging with people, posting stories. And it was when I went on my first demo a few months later that I found that sense of belonging, because everybody I'd spoken to online, when I met them in person, although I'd only known them a couple of weeks, 3 weeks online, when I met them, they treated me like we'd known each other for years. It is quite a weird situation to be in, because in a way they're strangers, but when you meet them, it feels like you've met them for years. That sense of belonging that these groups offer you is so strong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that camaraderie as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like they've got your back. Do you know what I mean? When all these other people are slating us, I know these boys here are going to stand with me. Do you know what I mean? I'm not on my own.
Once again, I'm seeing similarities with what you mentioned earlier, Riaz, about football.
Yeah.
You know, about camaraderie, a cause. You know, yeah. So the marches happened. Did you stay local or did you travel around?
No, I travelled all around the UK. Do you know what I mean?
So was you ever fortunate enough to go to exotic Leicester or Birmingham?
I've been to them a few times. Yeah, I probably nearly had a meeting with Riaz in Leicester a few years back. I think I remember.
I saw the size of your trainers running away. I think they were size 10 or 11.
Me running away. You were running the other way.
So traveling around, obviously, it took you out of, you know, Suffolk. You came into
me out of my
communities,
daily routine. And I think because I'm that sort of person. I'm old school. Do you know what I mean, Ray? I love my hometown. I never used to go anywhere apart from here. With the EDL, I travelled more, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I got to see lots of different car parks in different towns.
It's that excitement, isn't it? You know you're going to.
It's that buzz. It's that.
Yeah. You get ready.
Stuff, and then traveling to that demo and then taking part, and then on the way home it's just that. That relaxed. You've got no aggression left. You're just chilled out. Do you know what I mean? You're just tired and chilled.
We've got a question here, Ivan. Can you see that question there, Ray, from John?
Yeah. Okay. So John says, he says, why wouldn't people touch you with the EDL tag? They didn't want to know you then, which is wrong. So what he was saying to you is, why didn't people, I think John what's saying is, back then, even though you were affiliated, why didn't they engage with you? Create dialogue?
People just didn't want to talk to the English Defence League people because we were seen as the boogeyman back then. I think I'm not sticking up for EDL here, but I'm explaining my story so you understand it.
Yeah.
In the first couple of years, all really the EDL were doing was echoing newspaper headlines and stories. So when we were echoing that on the streets, because we had a concern about what they were writing, we were then labelled racist and bigots. But then it was acceptable for the papers to print it. So when you're constantly called racist or bigot or Nazi, especially, right? And there's no engagement. It was that lack of meaningful engagement with me that pushed me further into the echo chambers that people speak about. So, I mean, I was getting more involved because of the most basic need of a human being is to be understood and heard. I wasn't getting that from the right people.
However, we tried to engage with EDL before, but they didn't want to know. They just you lot all terrorists, you lot all rapists, you lot are child groomers, because we couldn't engage with you guys. And that's a fact. All they want to do is fight. That's what they want to do.
Okay, but let's. Okay, but here's the thing. But here's the key thing. What you said there, you were depicted then. No, sorry, you were projecting what you read in the papers, right?
Yeah.
But so there wasn't time to decipher whether what was correct or not. It's printed, so it must be right, and we're gonna echo that. Okay, interesting. Because we see a pattern, right?
That's it in a nutshell, Ray. Because, like I say, most people in my town, we believe the newspapers. We believe the main news on the TV. We don't feel the need to look anywhere else for it. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. So, Riaz, question then. So, when you talk about your engagement, because you kind of like, you just pressed record on your phone, didn't you? And just had, you were just kind of like this person from Leicester who grew up around Leicester, knew all the football firms, saw something that you felt deemed to be inequality, which was once again connected to what the media was saying. So you were responding to the media. I even was responding to the media.
Yeah.
And maybe even the same papers. Right?
Yeah.
And see, this is interesting. I mean, look, we know the role. I think people now have started to realize, especially with what's been going on over the last 12 months, because a lot of people that actually don't know that a lot of the media have a political stance, right? The average person reading on the, and some of the media that publish some of the high-end newspapers, right? What we call higher learning newspapers, if you want, actually also print the same paper for the man or woman on the street.
Absolutely.
They're coming off the same printing press, right? So where we are now, so you're on these marches, you're adminning the social media. Let's fast forward. What was let's call it your road to Damascus or your epiphany? What was that moment? Because for me, I really believe that humans can change, right?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen it, I've experienced it, I've seen it hundreds of times. History tells us that where people have a position today and down the line they can change. But what was your moment? What was it for you?
I think it was for me was I had a seed planted in my head around 2010. Only been in it a year. We done a demonstration in Peterborough. The usual demo, there's trouble, there's arrests. We had a big fight with the EDL back then, the Muslim Defence League. And we left. And about 2 weeks after that demo, the local mosque who we'd done a demonstration against asked to talk to us. But the seed that was sown to me there is we didn't go to that. But the question I was asking myself then was, after we just went there and abused and caused a lot of division in Peterborough, why did they want to still speak to us? I couldn't work that out. So fast forward another 10 months, that seed started to grow, and I was in Norwich with my kids shopping, and by chance I see two Muslim ladies walk past me with a hijab on. Where I live, you don't see that. So in a weird, not stalkerish way, I kind of followed them, and they went up to this room, men and women on either side, and I just sort of knocked on the window. I don't know why I did it. I can't explain that. It happened. Everyone turned around because it was glass windows, and I felt really uncomfortable because everyone was staring at me. And then this little white guy come up to the door, open the door, give me a hug, and I was a bit thinking, hang on, what are you hugging me for? So I sort of blurted out, I was English Defence League, maybe just to make him let go kind of thing. But when he let go, he then shook my hand and said, I'm fascinated. I really wanted to speak to somebody from the EDL for a long time. So he was busy, and I was busy with my kids. And then I arranged to meet him the next day, and then that led to about 6 months of chatting. And this guy was a white Muslim convert.
Okay.
So it was easy to talk to him, I guess, because I didn't see really a big Muslim label with him. And then after we started challenging each other and talking, once we got to know each other, we started to think that this is going to sound really disrespectful, but I thought I was more knowledgeable on Islam than he was, because he was able to challenge me on a lot of things. When I was challenging him on what I knew, he didn't really have a clue.
Okay.
So I kind of thought, maybe I know more than you, kind of thing. And then by chance, that led me to meet Muhammad Ali, my first proper Muslim with brown skin, big beard. And it was that guy there, my enemy, the person I hated the most, was the one who said to me, sit down, Ivan, and have a conversation with me. So I sat down, and I remember at first I didn't want to say much because that out of your comfort zone feeling. But then Muhammad said, say what you want. So I did. I pushed the boundaries. I said what I wanted to say. And he just looked at me and went, have you finished now? And that sort of made us laugh. And he went, look, you've got some valid concerns there, but you've also got misconceptions. So I said, well, teach me. Do you know what I mean? Explain them to me. And then a further 2 years of work with Manwar. And that wasn't just talking with Manwar. He made the EDL feel a part of something. Well, me and my division anyway in East Anglia, because we got invited to a few of his events, because we always heard that, it's like Muslims just raise money for Muslims. He held a charity night, and it was for a white women's domestic violence unit. So he invited 8 of us along. So we went, and it was awkward. There's a room of 400 Muslims and us in the middle.
And then you're still Sorry, but just to be clear, you're still actively.
Yeah,
EDL?
still active. Yeah, still active in the EDL.
Okay.
So we're at this charity night, and then about halfway through the night, Manwar did a quiz just for a laugh. I was going to say a pub quiz, but that don't make much sense. But like a little quiz for the room.
A halal quiz, yeah.
Yeah, and I said to a couple of the lads, let's take part for a laugh. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we did, and we scored the highest marks. There's a quiz on Islam.
Wow.
So we scored the highest marks in the whole of the room.
Wait, hold on. Pause a minute. You're in a room full of 400 Muslims. He does a halal quiz, and Team EDL.
Team EDL. Yeah.
Quiz. That should have been we should have had that. That should have been a documentary, flying all documentary.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Honestly, it was unreal because it was a good thing, because once we did that, and Manwar did make a big thing about it at this event. Do you know what I mean? People started talking to us. So I guess we had to prove ourselves before people started. It was that breaking down of that barrier again. Do you know what I mean? Proving ourselves that, I don't know, that we're not as bad as what everybody's making us out to be. And it was like, and then after Lee Rigby was killed, that was quite horrific for the country. But we had a big influx of EDL members. So mine and Manwar's friendship was tested to a point. Do you know what I mean? Because of that. But Manwar again, I can't praise the man up enough. Both him and Keneal, the person I met before, they both rang me up the day after Lee Rigby was killed to explain how sorry they were and explain that it was nothing to do with Islam, and kind of giving me the truth instead of the agendas I had, and that cemented our trust. So I said to Manwar, because a bit further on, a couple of months later, we were going to do loads of silent walks in the UK. So I said to Manwar, do you fancy walking with the English Defence League? And as you can imagine, it was a bit of a shock for him, but Manwar's an honest bloke, do you know what I mean? He saw us as human beings, and he said yes. So in 2013, myself and about 30 other EDL members from my division, we marched with Manwar and his Muslim community in Ipswich.
I remember seeing.
So was this? So it was a march of solidarity against extremism. Yeah. Is what it was.
Yeah, and this was sort of, when I was telling this explained to the situation now. So once we did that march, the one thing I thought about that, it was a positive, because it was two sides who didn't really like each other. We come together on a common grand goal, which was the Lee Rigby killing, to respect him and the other troops. So all we did was a march through the town centre, about a mile and a half, and laid some flowers on a cenotaph. The next day when I woke up from that, I had loads of articles sent me saying, Ivan, you made the paper. We made all the national newspapers, from the Times down to the local ones. And I was thinking, maybe a reporter's going to get in touch with me and ask me about why I decided to do it. And to be fair, I took a lot of praise for that march, right, within the EDL and outside the EDL. But we did have a lot of negativity, not towards us, but towards Manwar and his Muslim community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I found unbelievable, because it could have pushed me a bit deeper in, because I was seeing Muslims attacking Muslims for doing something good. And it wasn't just them attacking him, it was the words they were using towards him, like Uncle Tom, coconut, and stuff like that. And I thought, if I'd have said that to Manwar, things would have been a bit different. Do you know what I mean? But these people were openly writing it online. So back then as well, another bit of a funny side to it, I guess. Me and my mate from the EDL were arguing with Muslims on Muslim forums defending Manwar. It was really bizarre, because I felt so bad for Manwar that he was brave enough to take a chance with us.
Yeah.
And he got obliterated for it. Do you know what I mean?
So you built a relationship. I'm going to bring you in as well now, Riaz. You built a relationship with this gentleman. So this space for dialogue. So dialogue happened. you tried to do work together. Then you saw that he was being criticised. I assume you were being criticised for working with him as well at some point.
Yeah, but not. I was getting a little bit, but not half as much as Manuel was getting.
Okay.
Which was shocking for me, really. Do you know what I mean? Because if anybody I would have thought would have got the abuse, it would have been me.
You know why? I tell you what. The EDL was seen as enemies of Muslims, right? He was going up and down the country, wrecking towns, right? No, I mean, I know that was then. I know you're a different person now. At the time, he was wrecking towns. He was calling us all kinds of names. He was disrespecting our Prophet, peace be upon him. He was disrespecting the Quran. And when this man, Manwar, went on demo with you guys, obviously it's going to be an uproar. You know, it's like he's sold out. You know what I mean? Like,
I get that. Do you know what I mean? I do get that.
That's why.
But here's the question, though, Riaz, because this back to this conversation about dialogue, right? And how spaces for dialogue are formed. Because without that, and you're right, you know, some of the things that were coming out, and some of the things that are still coming out, right, are, you know, hurtful, very, very hurtful to different communities. Even with the whole, you know, this last kind of 3 to 4 months around the issues around racial justice, it's brought to the surface a lot of opinions and a lot of statements that people are like, you actually believe that? So that space for dialogue, and this is one of the challenges for practitioners. When we're talking about engagement, the rules of engagement, are the rules of engagement, and this is my question to you, probably both of you, are the rules of engagement that even if you disagree, you keep the doors of dialogue open? Or are you saying if you don't engage the first time round, then you don't engage in the future? What's your opinion on it?
No, you engage, but there's certain limits. I mean, you don't go on marches and demos with the enemy, if you want to call them that, at that time. You can have doors open, have dialogue, but don't march with them with their cause. If you understand what I'm saying, there's no. I mean, I have dialogue with Ivan. If I knew I'd have dialogue with him, I sit in the place with him and talk to him about the EDL. He talks to me about Islam and stuff. We'll have dialogue, but I wouldn't go on a demo with him because it's like I've sold out. You understand what I'm saying here?
Oh, so someone's asking a question, interesting question here. You could probably answer this, Ivan. Someone said Manoa, is that Manoa Ali from Ipswich Jimas?
Yeah.
He had extreme views in the 90s that a lot of people were influenced by. Is that who you're referring to?
Yeah, that's who I'm referring to. So the reason why he's been so great for me is because he understood my interpretation of Islam from Chowdhury because of his past.
Okay, so that's a caveat that people need to understand. So the person who engaged with you, they themselves identified as being extreme in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe saw, and they're not here but from what I'm hearing, maybe saw similarities in your journey and their journey. Someone mentioned here in the questions that an individual who influenced a lot of people negatively in the 90s, they themselves exited an extremist ideology. And so what do they do now? Do they do similar work to you, or where are they at with it?
Yeah, Myanmar's still doing his thing. Do you know what I mean? Myanmar's always been a peace builder, if that's what you call him, a bridge builder. He's very busy. Do you know what I mean? He's active. He's an intervention provider as well. So
is it because then is it what I'm saying is it the lived experience that he had was enabled to create dialogue with you?
Yeah, I think it, and that's the thing that's most overlooked at the minute is lived experience. My lived experience is totally different to somebody else's in the EDL. There's no one size fit all like everybody thinks there is. And I think because of Myanmar's lived experience, he was able, and he'd learnt from his journey, he probably saw where I was going wrong.
Yeah.
And like almost as a train or their religion tells them to keep other people safe. And I guess he was doing that to me in a way.
Interesting. So back to the last 3 or 4 months where the kind of focus moved away from primarily the Muslim community to where we have the standoff in Trafalgar Square, the whole conversation around the statues. Bearing in mind previously people said, I'm not racist, I've got blacks in my family, and this kind of conversation. and then all of a sudden you see the focus move to a different community. What you from the outside now? What were your views on it, or what were your, both of you really? Question to both of you. What were your feelings around it?
To start with, when the Black Lives Matter first come to England, do you know what I mean? After George Floyd, I supported it, everything. Do you know what I mean? I understood it as much as I can as a white person, that is. Do you know what I mean? But then I'm also seeing other people in my hometown, for example, coming up with some of the maddest things I've heard them saying in the period of time I've known them. So I was engaging with them and talking to them, but as a white ally, as they call us, it's becoming harder and harder. Pardon?
No. Is that the term? Can't you just be an ally?
Yeah, an ally. But you know, I'm just going what the actual talk is at the minute. So okay. I'm an ally. All right, I'm an ally. But it's harder for me now than it's ever been to challenge stuff or even debate with people, because like in any movement that comes, there's an extremist element, and it seems like the extremist element has got the loudest voice now, which is where all these mixed messages are coming on. So I could be discussing something with a white guy, and they could like tag or show me black people saying what they're saying, and then you've got black people speaking against the Black Lives Movement. Now, where am I? Where do I sit now? Because if I challenge either of the black lads, either one of them could call me a racist. That mixed messaging that's out there at the minute, that's made worse by social media. There's a lot of misconceptions out there.
Interesting.
And labeling all
Riaz,
white people.
Over to you. I mean,
well, I agree with you.
I mean, just to respond to what Ivan was saying, Riaz, what was your take on it?
I thought the Black Lives Matter was an important movement. I believe in the movement, but not. It's not. I believe in the hashtag and the movement, but now there's other groups getting involved. Like you got the extreme left wing; they're getting involved now, and the middle class left wing are getting involved, and it's kind of watering down the movement now. If you get what I mean, and there's no such group. BLM is just like a movement. There's no group, but there's many groups all claiming to be part of the BLM. And they're watering it down a bit now. They're sort of muddying the waters, if you like to say. I still agree with the actual thing.
Someone in Leicester who's been a kind of worked around bringing communities together. All of a sudden, everyone's at home. We see what happened with George Floyd.
Yeah.
You know, things change, escalate.
Yeah.
But one of the conversations is that I'm hearing and all that. Yeah, we you know. Yeah, the plane goes over when Raheem Sterling's on bended knee, you know, the whole conversation around the statues and so on. But back to the original conversation we had today, where are the spaces for dialogue? Because if the media pump what they pump, and they'll always pump what they pump out, where are the spaces for dialogue? This is what I'm saying. When your football hooligan experience, sorry to cut across you, your football hooligan experience, you mentioned something at the start of the show where you said in that lifestyle you'd kick off with someone, and all of a sudden down the line you're in a rave next to the people that you wouldn't even have a conversation with now, and all of a sudden you're cutting the lasers next to them, right? Do you understand? So I mean, it's a strange space for dialogue, but it was a space for dialogue. And isn't that the question to both of you really, isn't that the challenge today, that where if we don't keep creating these spaces for dialogue, and we keep trying to say, well, the door's still open, right? Do people go into their silos? Do people go into these echo chambers?
I think social media does give people this opportunity to vent their opinions, but sometimes it's behind a veil, if you get what I mean. So I see a lot of racism now because of the Black Lives Matter movement. I've seen people that I've known for years who claim they weren't racist are bringing out racist opinion now. So I don't think any dialogue face to face, because then people are scared to voice their opinions. But behind the screen, they will have voiced their opinions. So dialogue is very, very important, but it's got to be the right dialogue
and delivered by the right person. So what about you, Ivan? Where are you at with it?
Well, I agree with Riaz that face-to-face interaction is so much more powerful than interacting with anybody online. Because the one thing that annoys me about the online space when you're talking and challenging people is the minute you say something that hits home, that really makes them think, they'll delete and block you. So sometimes you've wasted 2 or 3 hours talking to somebody for nothing. It disheartens a little bit. The online space is where the most work needed. I don't think. I think sometimes that the online space, there's a lot of division there. It's not as bad online as it is offline. I think the offline space is a lot more peaceful, maybe. But because of the online space, certain people, certain agendas, and they've taken this online division and hate and making it out to be in the real world as such.
Okay.
Which
and let's
doesn't help things.
Let's interject. Let's interject. I've seen people when they say they have face-to-face dialogue, but they end up shouting each other down. They won't let the other person speak their opinion by calling them racist or by calling them this and calling them names. So this is what happens as well when you do it face-to-face. They sort of shout each other down.
It depends which way you go at it.
That isn't debate, though. That's not dialogue. That's debate.
You're right.
You see, that's where you're going. That's where maybe you might be going wrong with us. Do you know what I mean? For me,
up to Nick Griffin on television that time. You got shouted down without even anyone trying to challenge his opinion. They just shouted him down. Look at Carla. Carla slated Tommy Robson. He just threw him to bits with dialogue.
That's because, right, the job we do as peace builders or bridge builders, I refuse to pick a side, right? Because at the minute, it feels as if you've got to pick a side, left or right or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And you can't help people if you pick a side. I try to remain neutral with an open mind. I can't take one person's opinion better than the other because I won't be able to do my job properly in putting them together or even having that proper dialogue.
Okay, so I hear you there. I hear what you're saying. So you're saying then now part of your journey is that it's not that now you've gone over this side or that you've chosen a side. You're in the middle saying, look, this is what we refer to as the third space, right?
Yeah.
Where you is that where you believe the change can happen? Being a mediator.
That's where my passion is, because for my work, the ideology, there's lots of people out there doing great work on that. The gap I see is the grassroots. Is getting people to have that conversation before. If we don't answer people, they're going to find answers online, and them answers are going to be wrong. So we need that. We need people that's able to stay focused and stay just where you want to be, because it is hard at the minute not to pick a side. Do you know what I mean? Because
you do generally, as human beings, you pick sides. So it's
it's natural, but
let's say you will lean to one side more than the other. It's a natural thing for humans to do. So I don't know how.
It's hard. I mean, it's a skill set, right? So 2020, where are you now? I mean, we see some of the work you're doing out there. Likewise, Riaz. I mean, obviously, COVID has restricted some of the travel and some of the face-to-face engagement. But if you can share with us and some of the people tuned in, some of the work that you're doing, and what does the future look like for Ivan Humble and New Day Starts?
I don't know, really. I don't know what the future. I never thought I'd be where I am today. I've just had so many opportunities and chances. I'm from a council estate, for example, and I love that council estate. But for somebody like me to get the platform I've got now is unreal. Do you know what I mean? The work I do in media education has been a big part of my life for the last 3 years, because working with a Muslim guy called Irfan, he's just like Riaz. He's prepared to have the conversations, and a lot of our workshops revolve around conversation, critical thinking, dialogue, problems, issues that you need to talk about, because if you're not talking about them in a safe space, you're going to be talking to them in a dangerous place. And I just think what I'm going to do now is just keep doing what I'm doing, doing the best I can to help people. The one thing recently that has made a big impact on me, that gave me a new zest, if you know what I mean, a new drive, was being nominated for the National Diversity Awards. I didn't get shortlisted, but that nomination that enabled me to finally see the impact of my work. I see feedback all the time, and that's great. But when you hear from real people, like I got nearly 100 nominations, and the good thing about the diversity awards is you can read the nominations, but you don't know who they're from. And amongst some of them, I had some really great ones, but there's 4 there from former EDL members who I haven't had no talking to, but they've followed my journey. They've watched my videos, and they've moved away from that kind of thing now. There's another more extreme gang leader as well.
They're former EDL.
Yeah.
So
well, to be fair, we might as well clear something up there. The EDL really isn't a thing no more. Yeah. It's just a name that has lived on. The group itself doesn't exist really.
So now they're when you say they're former, I'm sorry to interject. So they themselves have been on a journey. They saw that you're still.
Yeah, they're kind of still my journey. Been on a journey. Yeah, but I haven't had no part of that journey apart from the work I've done. If you know, I've had no influence over them directly. It's just through watching the work I've done, which to me is really good. I mean, I don't see that. So being a former is quite a hard space to work in because you've got enemies everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I've had to change my life a bit as well recently, the last couple of years, because of some of the threats I've had. I don't use the train so much now. I drive more. I don't go out much because I don't know. I just protected myself, I think. Now, do you know what I mean?
You've got to risk assess your work.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I don't like, that I've had to change my life because of my work.
The same with me, to be honest with you. Since I've started doing my online stuff, I have to be really careful of who I engage with as well. Because sometimes they ask for your book and they ask for a signature and they want a signed copy of the book. You can be very careful who you send the book to, or the books get sent to your house to sign it. After my kids, I don't put them on Facebook and stuff because you never know, do you?
You got to risk assess what you're doing. So, but something just dawned upon me while we were speaking. Do you remember the last time us 3 were in a space together?
Birmingham?
No.
Let me think. I was thinking of that training day.
You're not going to win this quiz. I'll tell you that much.
In that restaurant?
No.
Oh,
this is good.
Gentlemen, we were stood.
Oh, hang on. France?
Excellent.
Yes, that's right.
I did win.
So, remember, just to remind the watchers, well, was it 2 coach loads or was it coach load? There was 2 coach loads, I believe. People invited from the UK to go over and see the contribution of the Muslims and the contribution of people from the British Empire, their contribution in the Second World War, First and Second World War. And I always remember when they took us to the Battle of the Somme, didn't they? And I mentioned someone. I remember someone saying they still find, was it a ton of shrapnel every year, even now? Yeah. And then we went to this memorial where there was plinth after plinth after plinth, and etched in them were tens of thousands of names in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And you know, when we started at Abdul, that went right round, for tens, just like as far as your eye could see, literally. And then I remember going to the graveyard. Do you remember the graveyard where the Muslims, Christians, and Jews were buried next to each other? And the only different thing was the Muslim graveyard was pointed towards the Qibla, towards Mecca.
Yeah.
And then the Jewish graves next to them, because some places they were buried next to each other, weren't they? They weren't in their section.
Yeah, and that was a good thing about that, because I think me and Riaz asked that question: why are they buried together? Because back then, that's what they wanted. We needed each other back then. Do you know what I mean? And that was a different. You talk about that trip to France. The one thing that I really remember from it that made me think, "Oh, I belong here on this journey with you," was that memorial you said about with all the names. I remember you lot going around to look for the names, and I was stood with a guide, and he said, "Why aren't you gone?" I said, "As if it's my name's going to be on there." Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then he pointed out this this thing right over the way. So go have a look over there. So I did, and I found 6 people with my surname.
Right.
When I see that, the whole trip changed for me. Then, do you know what I mean?
Well, there's one. I remember this. I don't know if you remember this moment as well. There was a family, about 2 or 3 together, sisters. One's they were at one's a doctor, and I think one's an artist. And they rang back to back to the UK while we were on the coach to ask some questions to their grandparents. And they found, I believe, they found one of their relatives over there.
Yeah,
yeah, that was in the last place we went to, wasn't it?
Amazing.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
I remember that.
Heavy. Gentlemen, look, we're coming up to an hour. Is there any final comments that you'd like to share or put out there? Firstly, how can we get hold of both of you? If people want to contact you, work with you, where can they get hold of you?
I'm on Facebook.
Yeah, Riaz Khan, yeah?
Yep, Facebook.
LFC?
LCFC, you mean? No, it's just Riaz Khan.
Not Liverpool Football Club. Let's, all right. Okay.
Yeah, just Riaz. You see my face.
Okay, excellent. Ivan, how can people get hold of you?
Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Just Google my name. That's the easiest way.
New Day Starts, is that right?
Yeah, that's my Twitter, at New Day Starts, yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, listen, thank you very much. You've been, I appreciate you first of all, and also you've been very generous with your time and your knowledge and your sharing your honesty. There's a lot of work to be done, but what it clearly shows us is that peace building, mediation, conflict resolution, all these things are as important as ever, especially in an era where no one has said that B word in a while, that word Brexit, in a world where the world's changing. Have a blessed evening, and thank you all for tuning into Safe Guidance TV.
No, thank you.